Hello and welcome. Tonight, I invite you to set aside the weight of your day and rest in the comfort of a soothing sleep story. This is a place for calm, for stillness, and for peace. As you listen, allow yourself to settle into a comfortable position. Let your body grow heavy, your breathing slow, and your thoughts drift like clouds across a quiet sky. The story you are about to hear is called The Journey of the Gentle Turtles. It is a tale of ocean waters, moonlit lagoons, glowing festivals, and the quiet wisdom of the sea. Each word is woven with softness, each image painted to ease your mind into calmness. You may listen to the story all the way through, or you may find yourself drifting into sleep long before the end. Both are perfectly fine. This story is here to guide you, to carry you gently on the current of imagination until you arrive in the quiet harbor of dreams. So now close your eyes, breathe deeply, and allow the waves of the ocean to take you on a journey. Let the gentle turtles lead the way, and when you are ready, we shall begin. The world was quiet, wrapped in the soft embrace of evening. The sun had already dipped beneath the horizon, leaving behind a sky brushed with the faintest hues of rose and lavender. The sea, wide and endless, reflected those tender colors, its surface rippling gently as if breathing in harmony with the world. Far along the coastline, where the land curved like a protective arm around the water, lay a tranquil lagoon. The lagoon was a secret place, hidden by clusters of swaying palms and tall dune grasses that whispered in the night breeze. It was here that the turtles lived, gentle, ancient beings who had seen countless tides rise and fall. The lagoon was shallow near the shore, its water warm and calm, a cradle for life. The sand was soft and pale, speckled with tiny shells that glimmered faintly beneath the moonlight. Waves lapped against the shore in an unhurried rhythm, a steady lullaby that had sung to generations of turtles who called this place home. Among the many turtles who gathered in the lagoon, there was one who moved a little slower than the rest, though all turtles moved slowly in their own graceful way. This turtle, with a shell, the color of mossy jade, was known by the others as Luma. She had been born beneath a full moon many years ago, and though her pace was unhurried, her heart carried a quiet strength and a deep calmness that spread to those around her. Luma loved the twilight most of all, the in-between time, when day gently yielded to night. She loved the stillness of it, the hush that settled over the sea, the way the stars began to appear, one by one, like lanterns being lit across the heavens. She would rest near the edge of the lagoon during these hours, her head just above the water, watching as the sky darkened and the world grew softer, quieter, and more at ease. That evening, as the first stars shimmered awake, Luma lifted her gaze to the heavens. The sky was opening its vast canvas of constellations, patterns that the turtles had known for centuries. Some stars guided them on their long journeys across the sea, while others were simply companions in the night. The water around her was cool and silky. She let herself drift, her flippers moving gently, slowly, as though every motion was part of a larger rhythm. Around her, the other turtles floated in silence. A young one rested upon the sand, its tiny shell barely larger than a seashell, while an older turtle, with a shell worn smooth by time, rested near the reef. They were all gathered in peace, held by the same water, the same night, the same breath of the earth. From deep within the lagoon came the faint glow of plankton. Tiny sparks of light shimmered just beneath the surface, stirred awake by the movement of the turtles. The water glowed softly, like starlight caught beneath the waves, and each time Luma drifted forward, the glow spread outward in rippling patterns. It was as though the ocean itself was breathing light. The turtles did not speak in words as humans do, yet they shared something more timeless, a sense of togetherness, of being part of the same endless rhythm. When one turtle moved, the others seemed to know. When one rested, the others slowed in turn. It was a harmony born from patience and the deep wisdom of the sea. Luma closed her eyes for a moment and felt the water cradling her. The gentle waves rocked her like a mother rocking a child. The sounds of the sea were soft water brushing against sand, palm leaves, rustling faintly on the shore, a distant bird calling as it settled into its nest for the night. Everything was calm. Everything was safe. The moon rose higher, round and luminous, casting a silver pathway across the ocean. It stretched from the far horizon all the way to the lagoon, as if inviting the turtles to follow it out into the open sea. Luma gazed at that pathway, her eyes reflecting the moonlight, and she felt the first stirrings of curiosity within her heart. Where did that silver road lead? What mysteries waited beneath the stars? She had heard the old stories, passed down from turtle to turtle, of distant reefs that glowed like jewels and bays, where the sand sparkled as though sprinkled with stardust. She had heard of gentle currents that carried travelers to secret gardens beneath the sea, where coral blossomed like flowers and fish moved in shimmering schools, as if painting the water with color. And though Luma loved her lagoon dearly, she wondered if perhaps the time was coming when she too might journey beyond the safe curve of the shore. For now she rested. The night was long, and the journey, if it was meant for her, would come in its own time. Slowly, Luma lowered herself deeper into the lagoon, her shell gliding just above the sandy floor. Tiny fish darted out of her way, glowing faintly in the moonlight before disappearing again into the shelter of the sea grass. The water was warm, and every movement was slow, unhurried, like a lullaby drawn out into motion. She passed by a cluster of seagrass swaying gently in the current. Small crabs scurried along the sand, their shells glinting like polished stones. A starfish clung lazily to a rock, its arms spread wide as though it too were reaching for the stars above. The world beneath the water was as quiet as the sky, and in that quiet, everything seemed to breathe together: the ocean, the land, the turtles, and the stars. At last, Luma returned to the surface, her head breaking the water's skin with barely a ripple. She looked again toward the horizon, where the silver road of the moon stretched endlessly, and felt the calmness of the night settle into her. The journey would come, but for now, she was here, in the lagoon, safe beneath the stars, held by the sea's gentle arms. And so, the night deepened, carrying the turtles further into dreams. The lagoon of the turtles was a sanctuary, a place where time seemed to move slower than anywhere else in the world. The outside ocean could be vast and restless, filled with strong tides and powerful currents. But here, in this hidden bay, the waters were gentle, as if the sea itself wished to protect those who dwelled within. Tall cliffs framed one side of the lagoon, their rocky faces softened by vines and moss that cascaded down like emerald waterfalls. At the base of the cliffs, small caves and crevices provided shelter for fish, crabs, and the younger turtles, who sometimes played hide-and-seek in the safety of the rocks. On the opposite side, the shore stretched wide and soft, its sand pale as ivory. When the tide rolled in, the waves brushed against the beach with a hushed sigh, smoothing the sand into delicate ripples. Scattered across the shore were seashells of every kind, spirals of pink, smooth white ovals, and pieces of coral polished smooth by the waves. Some of the shells were used by the smallest crabs as homes, while others simply lay in the sand, catching moonlight like tiny mirrors. In the center of the lagoon, the water was deep and clear. Beneath its surface grew beds of seagrass, swaying like gentle green curtains with the movements of the tide. Schools of tiny silver fish darted among the blades, their bodies flashing briefly whenever the moonlight touched them. Above them, the turtles swam at their unhurried pace, their shells gliding like drifting leaves across a pond. Every evening, as twilight deepened into night, the lagoon seemed to come alive in its own quiet way. The air carried the cool fragrance of salt and blooming sea flowers. The water shimmered faintly with bioluminescent life, each movement stirring soft glows that faded slowly back into the dark. It was as though the lagoon itself carried its own stars, hidden just beneath the surface. Luma floated peacefully near the heart of the lagoon, her shell rocking gently with the rise and fall of the tide. Around her, other turtles gathered in their evening rhythm. Some floated near the surface, watching the sky. Others rested on the sandy floor, motionless except for the soft movement of their flippers. It was a community of stillness, each turtle connected by the water that held them all. Near the edge of the lagoon, a group of younger turtles played together, chasing small bubbles that rose from the reef. They turned and spun in the water, their shells glinting faintly in the moonlight. Their laughter was not a sound, but a kind of energy that rippled through the lagoon, a joy that could be felt more than heard. Luma watched them with quiet fondness, remembering when she too was young and full of restless curiosity. At the farthest point of the lagoon lay a reef that marked the boundary between safety and the open ocean. It was a wall of coral, colorful even beneath the moonlight, where sea fans waved gracefully and small creatures tucked themselves into its crevices. Beyond the reef stretched the vast, dark sea, mysterious and endless, calling softly with the voice of the horizon. But within the lagoon, everything was gentle. Everything was calm. An older turtle drifted near Luma, his shell worn smooth by years of travel. His movements were slow, steady, like the rhythm of the tide itself. He had returned from the open ocean seasons ago and now spent his days in quiet peace among the younger ones. His presence carried wisdom, though he never spoke it aloud. The lagoon held its stories in silence, and the turtles learned by watching, by moving together, by simply being. Luma swam a slow circle through the lagoon, her flippers stirring faint trails of glowing light from the plankton below. She moved past the younger turtles, who paused in their play to watch her, their eyes wide and curious. She glided past the reef, where tiny fish flickered in and out of coral arches. She moved past the sandy shallows, where the tide smoothed ripples into patterns that would change again by morning. Everything here was alive, yet everything was still. It was a place of balance, a place where the outside world seemed far away. When Luma returned to the center of the lagoon, she lifted her gaze once more to the moonlit sky. The stars had grown brighter, scattering across the heavens in endless patterns. She traced them slowly, one by one, recognizing the shapes that her ancestors had followed across distant waters. There was the shape of the great whale, curving in the north. There was the path of the archer fish, its stars aligned in a narrow row. And there, above them all, was the gentle line of the turtle constellation, its shell-shaped cluster watching over the sea. The younger turtles often whispered their wonder about the stars, asking if they were lanterns, or fires, or reflections of something even greater. The older turtles, with their calm patience, would simply smile in their way and tell them to look closely, to follow the stars when the time was right and the answers would come. For now, the stars were simply companions, silent, patient, always present. The night deepened further, and the lagoon grew quieter. The younger turtles grew tired, their play slowing as they drifted toward the shallows to rest. The older ones closed their eyes, their bodies settling into the slow rhythm of the tide. One by one, they sank into stillness, as though the lagoon itself had wrapped them in a blanket of safety. Luma, too, felt the weight of rest calling her. She floated near the surface, her eyes half closed, the moon's reflection shimmering softly on the water around her. The night air was cool, but the water was warm, and she felt the gentle balance of both as she drifted. In the distance, a single wave rose and fell against the reef, its sound low and steady. It was the only sound now, the lullaby of the sea itself. The turtles listened without listening, their hearts beating in time with the waves. And so, beneath the moon, in the soft embrace of the lagoon, the turtles rested together. The world outside was vast, but here, within their sanctuary, there was only stillness, only peace, only the gentle breath of the ocean cradling them into dreams. The night was calm in the lagoon, the stars casting their gentle glow upon the water. Most of the younger turtles had already drifted into sleep, resting along the sandy shallows, their shells tucked into the warm embrace of the tide. But one figure remained awake a little longer, moving with the deliberate slowness of age and wisdom. He was known simply as Elderon. His shell was large and weathered, carrying the faint marks of journeys long past. Its surface bore soft grooves shaped by time, like ripples of the sea frozen in stone. His eyes, dark and steady, reflected both the present moment and the memories of countless seasons before. He was the eldest of the turtles in the lagoon, and though his body was slower now, his presence carried the calm weight of the ocean itself. The younger turtles often gathered around him, not because he spoke often, but because when he did, his words seemed to linger in the water long after they were spoken. Elderon's stories were not told quickly. They were unhurried, like the movement of tides, gently unfolding in their own rhythm. This night, as the moon climbed higher and silvered the lagoon, Luma swam toward him. She found him resting near the reef, his head lifted just above the surface, gazing out toward the open ocean. The light of the moon brushed over his shell, giving it the soft sheen of polished stone. Luma swam slowly beside him, and for a while they simply floated together in silence. The water moved around them in a steady rhythm, and above them the stars blinked like distant lanterns. Eldaron turned his gaze toward the horizon, his eyes calm and far away, as though he could see beyond the edge of the sea. After a long stillness, his voice rumbled softly, deep and steady, like the sound of waves meeting the shore. "Do you see the path of the moon, child?" he asked. Luma followed his gaze. The silver road of moonlight stretched far beyond the lagoon, shimmering across the dark water until it disappeared into the distance. "Yes," she whispered, her voice gentle. "It looks as if it goes on forever." Eldaron's eyes softened. "It does, and it does not. The path of the moon changes each night, but it always returns. That is the way of the ocean. That is the way of life. Journeys begin and journeys end, yet always the sea remains." Luma drifted closer, listening. She loved the way Eldaron spoke, not quickly, not urgently, but with the patience of someone who had learned that everything would come in its own time. "Have you traveled far, Eldaron?" she asked. His eyes glimmered with memory. "Far enough to know the ocean is endless. Far enough to know that even when you think you have reached the edge of the world, there is always more waiting beyond." Luma's heart stirred with curiosity. "What did you see?" The old turtle was silent for a moment, as though choosing his words carefully. Then, in his slow, deliberate voice, he began to share. "I have seen waters so clear that the stars seem to fall into them, shining beneath me as brightly as they did above. I have seen reefs glowing with colors too many to name, where fish swam in rivers of light and the corals swayed like fields of flowers. I have passed through storms where the sea rose high and fierce, only to calm again and show its gentleness once more. I have followed the great whales, listening to their songs echo across the waters, and I have found bays so still that the world itself seemed to pause, waiting for breath." His words moved like waves, each one rolling softly into the next. Luma closed her eyes as he spoke, picturing the wonders he described. The images unfolded slowly in her mind: bright reefs, starlit seas, vast whales, and quiet bays. Each image drifted gently, like a dream passing through her thoughts. "Were you ever afraid?" she asked quietly. Eldaron's head dipped slightly, a slow nod. "Yes, even the strongest current can bring fear. The ocean is wide, and at times it feels larger than the soul can hold. But fear is not an enemy, child. Fear is the reminder that we are alive, that we are small within something vast, and that is where wisdom begins." His words lingered, settling into the stillness between them. For a while, neither spoke. They simply floated side by side, the gentle current carrying them in slow circles near the reef. Luma felt a warmth in her heart, as though Eldaron's presence wrapped around her like a protective tide. Finally, the elder turtle spoke again. "There will come a time, Luma, when you will follow the silver path of the moon. Not tonight and not tomorrow, but one day you will feel the call and you will go. And when you do, remember that the ocean is both endless and kind. It will test you, yes, but it will also carry you. Always return to the rhythm of your breath, the rhythm of your heart, and the rhythm of the sea. They are all the same. His voice was steady, a lullaby carried on the water. Luma lowered her head slightly, comforted by his words. She did not yet know when her journey would come, but she felt calmer knowing that it would be part of something greater, something the ocean itself had already prepared. The moon climbed higher, casting its soft glow over the lagoon. The younger turtles stirred in their dreams, shifting gently in the sand. The reef glimmered faintly with tiny lights from the creatures that lived within it. All around, the night was full of quiet magic. Elderon closed his eyes at last, his body sinking into stillness. His presence, though resting, continued to fill the water with calm. Luma stayed awake a little longer, watching the silver path stretch out into the distance. She thought of Elderon's words, of his journeys, of the way he had spoken of fear as something gentle, something to be accepted. The water rocked her softly, and soon her eyes grew heavy. Slowly, peacefully, she lowered herself into the lagoon's embrace. Around her, the night carried on, patient and eternal, and above, the stars kept their silent watch. And so, beneath the gaze of the moon, Luma drifted into dreams of journeys not yet begun. The lagoon lay still, wrapped in the hush of midnight. The stars above shimmered brighter now, scattered like silver dust across a canvas of deep velvet. The moon, nearly full, rested high in the sky, its reflection spilling into the ocean and stretching into the horizon like a shining pathway. Luma floated near the surface, her flippers drifting lazily at her sides. Sleep had brushed close to her, but something in the night kept her awake. She felt the pull of the horizon more strongly than before, a whisper carried by the rhythm of the tide. It was not urgent, not insistent, but gentle, like a voice calling her name from far away, asking her to listen. The other turtles slept peacefully, their shells rising and falling with the water's quiet breath. Even Elderon had lowered himself into the sand at the edge of the reef, his eyes closed, his body at rest. Yet Luma remained awake, gazing at the path of moonlight that stretched out into the open sea. The call grew stronger, though still soft, like the tug of a current beneath the surface. She felt her heart stir, not with restlessness, but with wonder. Could she follow that silver road, just for a little while? Could she see what lay beyond the curve of the reef? Her flippers stirred gently, almost without her choosing. She drifted toward the edge of the lagoon, past the younger turtles resting in the shallows, past the seagrass meadows, swaying in the tide, past the shimmering glow of plankton that lit her path. The reef rose before her, tall and protective, a living wall of coral and stone. Small fish darted in and out of its crevices, their bodies glinting like sparks of light. The coral itself glowed faintly, catching the silver touch of the moon. It was the gate between the safety of the lagoon and the wide, open sea. Luma paused at the reef, her body swaying with the gentle push and pull of the tide. She remembered Elderon's words. There will come a time when you will follow the silver path of the moon. Perhaps this was not yet the true journey, not the great one he had spoken of, but something inside her told her it was time to take a small step forward. With slow, steady movements, she began to swim upward, rising toward the gap where the reef dipped low. The water there shimmered with moonlight, as though inviting her through. She hesitated for only a moment, then glided forward, her shell brushing softly past the coral as she crossed into the open sea. The ocean beyond was vast, wide and dark, but not frightening. The moonlight spread across the waves, painting them silver, and the stars reflected faintly in the ripples, as if the sky had fallen into the water. The horizon stretched endlessly, yet it felt welcoming, like an open hand. Luma swam slowly, her movements unhurried, her breath steady. She did not go far, only a little beyond the reef, only far enough to feel the shift between the sheltered lagoon and the open expanse of the ocean. The water here was deeper, cooler, carrying the scent of faraway places. It rocked her gently, as if testing her readiness, as if asking if she wished to go farther. She followed the silver pathway of the moon, letting it guide her. Each ripple of water glowed beneath her, each movement of her flippers sending gentle waves through the night. The world felt larger here, yet also quieter, as though the sea itself was listening. As she swam, she noticed the creatures of the open water stirring in the moonlight. A school of fish glided past her, moving together in a perfect dance, their bodies shimmering like quicksilver as they caught the moon's glow. They parted around her shell without fear, circling her briefly before flowing onward into the depths. Farther below, a shadow moved slow, graceful, immense. Luma held still, watching as the shape resolved into a manta ray, its wings outstretched like a drifting cloud. It glided silently beneath her, its movements wide and flowing, as though it carried the rhythm of the ocean within its body. For a moment, it lifted upward, as if to greet her, before sinking back into the darkness of the sea. Luma felt no fear, only awe. The ocean was larger here, more mysterious, but also filled with beauty. Every shadow carried life, and every ripple carried light. She swam onward, her body moving in harmony with the quiet vastness around her. The silver path stretched on and on. She did not need to reach the end. Perhaps there was no end. It was enough to follow, to feel the water move beneath her, to let the moon's light guide her flippers forward. After some time she paused, floating on the surface where the sky and sea seemed to touch. She gazed upward at the stars, then downward at their reflections below. It was as though she were swimming between two heavens, one above and one below, with only her quiet presence in the middle. Her eyes grew heavy, her body relaxed. The ocean cradled her, rocking her gently with its endless breath. She thought of Eldaron's words, of fear and wonder, of journeys and returns. She thought of the lagoon, waiting behind her, safe and still. She thought of the path ahead, stretching farther than her eyes could follow. And then softly, she turned. She had gone far enough for tonight. The lagoon was calling her back, and the ocean agreed, guiding her gently toward the reef. Her flippers moved slowly as she crossed back into the safety of her home waters. The glow of plankton welcomed her, sparking beneath her as she passed. The seagrass swayed in recognition, and the sand below gleamed softly in the moonlight. When she reached the center of the lagoon once more, she lowered herself into the water's embrace, her shell settling just above the sandy floor. Around her, the other turtles still rested in their dreams, untouched by her brief journey. Eldaron stirred faintly, opening one wise eye as if he knew she had gone beyond the reef. He did not speak, only closed his eye again and sank into deeper rest. Luma let her body grow still, her breathing slow and calm. She had followed the silver path, if only for a little while, and in doing so, she felt a part of something larger, something timeless. The moonlit journey was only beginning, but for tonight, it was enough to dream of the road ahead. The first pale light of dawn drifted into the lagoon, spreading through the water like a soft veil. It touched the coral with faint colors, brushed the shells of the sleeping turtles, and shimmered through the swaying blades of seagrass. The night had folded quietly into morning, but the world beneath the waves remained calm, hushed, and unhurried. Luma stirred slowly, her eyes opening to the gentle glow around her. Her body felt light, her flippers rested. She remembered the silver path she had followed beneath the moon, the vastness of the open sea, the manta ray gliding silently past. A sense of peace lingered within her, as though part of the ocean's wide embrace still rested inside her heart. She rose from the sandy floor, her flippers stretching outward with slow, steady movements. Around her, the other turtles were waking too. Small ripples brushed through the lagoon as shells lifted and drifted toward the surface, catching the first rays of morning light. Elderon remained at the edge, his gaze soft but steady, watching the young ones begin their day. Luma swam gently toward the meadows of seagrass that lay across the lagoon's floor. She had visited them many times before, but today they glowed brighter, their green blades alive with shimmering silver bubbles that clung to them from the night's breath. The grass swayed together as though moved by an unseen hand, their movements slow, rhythmic, and soothing. She glided among them, her body brushing softly against the blades. Tiny fish darted out from their hiding places, only to return the moment she passed. Some were striped, some spotted, some no larger than a pebble, yet each carried a sparkle of light on their scales. They flickered like lanterns between the leaves, weaving their way through the quiet morning. The meadow stretched farther than Luma remembered. Perhaps she had never explored its edges fully, or perhaps it was simply alive in a new way after her night's journey. The deeper she swam into the grass, the more wonders she discovered. Clusters of star-shaped anemones nestled at the base of the seagrass, opening their soft arms to the rising light. Their colors shifted gently, with the water's sway, pale blues, soft pinks, glowing whites like blossoms in an underwater garden. Tiny shrimp hopped playfully between them, their translucent bodies nearly invisible except for the faint shimmer of their movement. Above the grass, schools of silverfish moved together, weaving in perfect unison. Their dance was fluid, unbroken, as though they were many bodies sharing one mind. They glided around Luma without fear, swirling like ribbons of light before slipping back into the deeper shadows of the meadow. The water here was rich with calmness, each breath carrying a freshness that filled her lungs easily. It was as though the meadow itself was breathing with her, exhaling peace into the current. As Luma swam deeper into the meadow, she noticed something new. A trail of bubbles rose steadily from the seafloor, winding like a string of pearls into the water above. Curious, she followed the bubbles downward, past the tall blades of seagrass until she reached a small opening in the sand. It was a vent, releasing soft breaths from the earth below. each bubble carrying warmth as it drifted upward. She settled near the vent, letting the stream of bubbles brush against her shell. They tickled lightly, rolling across her body before bursting into the water around her. The warmth was gentle, comforting, like the touch of sunlight breaking through the morning sky. For a long while, Luma rested there, letting the warmth and rhythm of the bubbles soothe her. The meadow whispered with life all around, fish weaving, anemones swaying, shrimp darting, blades of grass rocking with the tide. It was as though the world had slowed into one great, endless breath. Then, as she floated quietly, she felt a presence nearby. Turning her head, she saw Elderon gliding toward her, his movements unhurried, his gaze filled with quiet knowing. He did not speak at first, only settled beside her, his great shell stirring the seagrass into a wider sway. Together, they floated above the bubbling vent, the water carrying its warmth between them. Finally, Elderon's voice rumbled softly, like a current flowing through stone. "You have begun your journey, little one." Luma tilted her head, her eyes wide. "Only a small one, just beyond the reef." Elderon nodded, his gaze lifting toward the faint shimmer of the surface. Every journey begins with a small step. The ocean waits, but it does not rush. It will open its doors slowly, the way morning opens into day. Luma let his words sink into her heart. The meadow around her seemed to echo them, each swaying blade whispering patience, each bubble rising in its own time. "Do not fear the vastness," Elderon continued. "The sea is not only wide, but gentle. It gives as much as it takes. Trust it, and it will carry you where you need to go." His words flowed like the tide, unhurried, steady, wrapping around her like a protective current. She felt her body grow lighter, her thoughts quieter, her heart calmer. They remained in silence for a while, surrounded by the meadow's slow dance. Then, with a deep breath, Elderon drifted back toward the reef, his presence fading like the echo of a wave. Luma watched him go, her heart full of both comfort and curiosity. Turning back to the bubbling vent, she let the last of its warmth settle into her shell before gliding once more through the meadow. The fish returned to their dance, the shrimp to their play, the grass to its endless sway. The ocean seemed to sing softly, a lullaby woven through water and light. By the time she returned to the center of the lagoon, the sun above had risen higher, spilling brighter beams through the surface. They touched the coral in golden hues, awakened the resting anemones, and painted the shells of her kin with a warm glow. Luma lowered herself into the sand once more, her flippers folding gently at her sides. She felt calm, steady, and full of wonder. The underwater meadows had shared their secrets, and the ocean had whispered its first lessons. Her eyes grew heavy again, and she allowed herself to drift into soft dreams, the sway of seagrass still moving within her heart. The day drifted on softly, sunlight pouring into the lagoon in golden ribbons. The warmth wrapped around the water, turning it into a gentle cradle that rocked the turtles as they swam and rested. Luma spent the morning near the surface, her flippers moving lazily, her eyes following the glimmers of light that danced across the waves. She felt peaceful, but also curious. The silver path she had followed under the moon still lingered in her thoughts, like a melody half remembered. She wondered what other wonders the sea held, just beyond the reef, waiting patiently for her to discover. By midday, the lagoon was alive with sound. Fish chattered softly as they darted through the coral shells, clicked faintly as crabs moved across the sand, and the distant hum of the ocean beyond the reef thrummed like a heartbeat. Yet, among these sounds, a new rhythm stirred a song unlike any she had heard before. It began faintly, carried on the current, a series of whistles, bright and playful, drifting closer with each passing moment. Then came clicks, fast and sharp, like pebbles tapping together in the water. The sounds wove together, rising and falling, playful and alive. Luma tilted her head, listening. The melody grew stronger, and soon shapes appeared in the distance, sleek, grey bodies slicing gracefully through the waves. Dolphins. They arrived like a storm of joy, bursting into the lagoon with leaps and spins, their voices ringing like laughter. Their sleek forms shimmered in the sunlight, their eyes bright with mischief and warmth. They moved as one, circling each other in spirals, darting upward to break the surface before plunging back down in fountains of spray. Luma watched in awe, her body still while her heart leapt with excitement. She had heard of dolphins before, swift, playful creatures who carried songs across the sea, but she had never seen them with her own eyes. One of the dolphins noticed her watching. With a swift flick of its tail, it darted toward her, slowing as it approached so as not to startle her. Its eyes gleamed with friendliness, and it let out a high, cheerful whistle that seemed almost like a greeting. Luma blinked, then offered a small movement of her flippers in return. The dolphin circled her once, twice, its body gliding effortlessly through the water, before calling out again in a burst of whistles and clicks. Soon, the others joined in. 3, 4. Then more dolphins surrounded her, weaving around her shell, darting upward, spiraling downward, their songs filling the lagoon with sound. It was not chaotic, but joyful, a music carried not just in their voices, but in their movements. At first, Luma felt shy, unsure how to join their dance. She was slower, heavier, her body built for steady endurance rather than quick leaps. But the dolphins did not mind. They swam beside her, slowing their movements to match hers, encouraging her with their songs. One dolphin nudged her gently, coaxing her upward. She followed, rising toward the surface. Together, they broke through into the air, the dolphin leaping high while Luma simply lifted her head. The splash of its return rained over her shell, cool and refreshing. She laughed softly in her own way, a ripple of bubbles leaving her mouth. The dolphins whistled brightly in response, as though delighted by her attempt. They began to teach her their song. One whistled a simple melody, rising and falling in clear notes, while another clicked in rhythm beside it. Luma listened closely, then released a slow stream of bubbles, trying to match the rise and fall of the sounds. The dolphins whistled back, circling her excitedly as though praising her effort. For hours they played together. The dolphins showed her how to weave between the coral without touching it, how to spin gently with the current, how to rise and dive with the rhythm of the waves. Luma followed as best she could, moving slower but steady, her flippers tracing arcs through the water. Each time she succeeded in following their movement, the dolphins cheered with whistles and leaps. Their joy was endless, spilling out like sunlight across the lagoon. At last, as the sun began to dip toward the horizon, the dolphins gathered near her once more. One swam close, resting its sleek side against her shell, humming a low, gentle note that vibrated softly through her. Another circled them, weaving a melody around the hum. The rest added their voices until the water was filled with harmony. Luma closed her eyes, letting the sound wash over her. It was unlike any lullaby she had ever heard, full of laughter and freedom, yet also carrying a depth that touched her heart. It was the ocean's joy, given voice through the dolphins' song. When the last notes faded, the dolphins rose together toward the reef. They leapt one final time into the fading light, their bodies gleaming against the orange sky, before slipping beyond the lagoon and into the open sea. Luma watched them go, her heart both full and light. Their song lingered within her, echoing in her chest like a memory she could carry forever. She drifted slowly back toward the center of the lagoon, the water now calm and golden with sunset. Settling onto the sand, she closed her eyes. The dolphins had shown her joy, had taught her that the ocean was not only vast and mysterious, but playful and free. As sleep drifted toward her once more, she whispered silently to herself, "One day I will carry their song into the wide sea." And with that thought, she surrendered to the gentle cradle of the water, her dreams filled with whistles, laughter, and the endless song of the dolphins. The days passed gently in the lagoon, each one bringing new colors to the water. Morning light danced in golden threads, midday shimmered with silver brightness, and evenings painted the sea in soft purples and blues. Luma grew more at ease with her world, her heart holding the joy of the dolphins and the calm of the meadows. But there was one voice she had not yet heard, a song older and deeper than any she could imagine. It came one evening as the sun dipped low, the horizon glowing with warm firelight before fading into soft twilight. The sea was calm, almost hushed, as if it too were waiting. Then it came, a sound that seemed to rise from the bones of the ocean itself, low, resonant, and vast. It began as a deep hum, so wide and full it vibrated through the sand beneath her shell. The water trembled with its weight, yet it was not frightening. It was steady, patient, like the heartbeat of the world. Luma lifted her head, her eyes wide. The song stretched farther than she could see, flowing past the reef and into the open sea. It rose and fell in long, slow notes, each one lasting as if time itself paused to listen. The voice filled her chest, her flippers, her very breath, until she could not tell where the sound ended and where she began. She knew then it was a whale. Drawn by wonder, she swam slowly toward the reef. The other turtles stirred too, their eyes following her, though none moved to join her. This song was for her alone, or so it felt. Eldarin, resting at the edge of the coral, lifted his gaze. His eyes glowed with knowing, but he said nothing, only watching as Luma slipped through the reef and into the open sea. The water beyond was darker now, twilight stretching its shadows. The silver path of the moon began to bloom on the surface once more, guiding her outward. The song continued, carrying her forward, each note like a hand gently leading her farther into the depths. She swam steadily, her flippers moving in rhythm with the song. The ocean seemed to open for her, shadows parting, currents softening, until at last she saw it. a shape vast and magnificent, moving with grace that defied its size. A whale, its body stretched longer than the reef itself, its skin etched with pale scars and lines, maps of journeys older than memory. Its eye, deep and gentle, turned toward her as it sang. The sound rose again, washing through her like a tide. Luma slowed, awed by the presence before her. The whale did not rush, did not overwhelm. It simply lingered there, suspended in the deep, singing its endless song. She drifted closer, her small form a speck beside the giant. Yet the whale's gaze held her kindly, as though she were not small at all, but part of the same great ocean. When the next note came, it was softer, directed toward her alone. It was as though the whale was speaking not in words, but in music. Luma felt the meaning, more than understood it, a welcome, an invitation to listen. She closed her eyes, letting the voice carry her. Images stirred in her mind, endless waters, shifting currents, migrations that stretched across seasons and continents. She saw storms rolling overhead, waves rising high, and yet the whale moving calmly through them all. She saw great gatherings of whales beneath the auroras of the far north, their songs weaving together like a choir. She felt the deep, timeless patience of the sea. When she opened her eyes again, the whale was still there, still singing. She tried in her own way to answer. She released a stream of bubbles, rising slowly into the water, her flippers moving gently in rhythm. The sound was small compared to the whale's vast song, but it was hers. The whale's eye softened. It released another note, this one lower, warmer, wrapping around her like a blanket. Together, they shared a moment of harmony, her small sound, his great voice blending into one. Time slipped away. The sea was dark now, lit only by the silver of the moon above. The whale's song slowed, becoming gentler, until at last it faded into silence. The giant drifted lower, its massive body glowing faintly in the moonlight. Before it disappeared into the depths, it released one final note, a farewell that echoed through the water. Luma lingered in the silence, her heart full. She felt as though she had been given a gift, something ancient and precious. The whale's lullaby would stay with her forever, a song etched into her spirit. Slowly, she turned back toward the reef. The lagoon welcomed her with its soft glow, the meadows swaying, the coral alive with color, even in the moonlight. Eldarin watched her return, his eyes knowing. "You have heard the deep song," he said softly. Luma nodded, her voice quiet. "It felt like the ocean itself was speaking to me." Eldarin's gaze was steady. "It was, and now a part of that song rests in you. Carry it well, little one." She settled once more into the sand, the water lapping gently against her shell. As sleep drew near, she felt the whale's voice still humming in her chest. It was a lullaby not only for the sea, but for her dreams. And so, cradled by the ocean, Luma drifted into slumber, her spirit carried by the endless song of the whale. Night fell once more, quiet and deep. The moon floated high above, casting its silver road across the waves. Within the lagoon, the water rested in stillness, as though it too were drifting toward sleep. Yet beneath the calm surface, something new stirred, an invisible hand, soft but steady, reaching through the sea. It was the current. Luma felt it first as a gentle pull against her flippers, guiding her toward the reef. She opened her eyes, noticing how the water seemed alive with movement, though the surface remained calm. Tiny sparks of bioluminescence glimmered with the flow, as if stars themselves had been scattered into the tide. Curious, she rose and followed. The current wound its way past the coral, slipping through narrow arches and winding paths. Where it moved, light followed plankton shimmering like drifting lanterns, jellyfish glowing faintly as they swayed in its path. The water became a river of light, winding into the open sea. Luma's heart stirred. It was as though the ocean had painted her a new pathway, not in silver moonlight this time, but in starlit streams beneath the waves. She moved slowly into the current, letting it carry her forward. Her body drifted without effort, her flippers spreading wide like sails, her mind calm. The current cradled her gently, guiding her outward into the vast sea. Around her, the glow deepened. Threads of light stretched in every direction, weaving into streams that shimmered like constellations. She was floating among rivers of stars, each one flowing with purpose, yet unhurried, timeless. Small creatures drifted within the glow, tiny shrimp glowing pale blue. Fish no larger than her flipper tip, shimmering like sparks. They moved with the current too, carried along as though part of its song. None resisted, all trusted the path of the water, flowing where it led. As she floated, Luma felt her thoughts quiet. There was no need to worry about direction, no need to push forward. The current knew where it was going. All she had to do was rest in its embrace. For a time, she closed her eyes, letting the flow move her. She drifted between glowing streams, her shell glowing faintly as the light touched it. The ocean hummed softly, not with sound, but with presence. It was as if the sea itself was singing a lullaby through motion, not melody. When she opened her eyes again, she found herself surrounded by wonders. Ahead, a vast bloom of jellyfish pulsed gently, their bells glowing with pale fire. They moved together in slow rhythm, their long trailing arms drifting like ribbons. The current carried her safely through them, parting their glowing bodies like a curtain of light. Beyond the jellyfish bloom, the water opened wider, and she saw streaks of silver darting among the glowing streams. Dolphins again, but these ones did not call or leap. They swam quietly, their sleek bodies gliding in silence, weaving gracefully through the currents as though they too were part of its dream. One turned briefly, meeting her eyes with a soft gaze, then vanished once more into the glow. Farther still, she glimpsed great shapes moving in the distance, perhaps whales, perhaps shadows of mountains beneath the water. Whatever they were, they moved slowly with the currents, not against them. All life here seemed to trust the same river of light. Luma's heart grew calm. She remembered Eldaron's words, "The sea gives as much as it takes. Trust it, and it will carry you." Now she understood. The current was not something to fight, but something to embrace. It carried not only water, but wisdom. She let her body sink lower, nearer to the glowing streams, until the light brushed her shell directly. Warmth spread through her, not of heat, but of belonging. She felt herself become part of the current, as though her breath, her heartbeat, her movements all joined its endless flow. Time drifted away. She no longer knew how long she had been carried, minutes, hours, perhaps the entire night. It did not matter. The current knew, and she trusted it. Eventually, she felt the pull begin to soften. The streams of light grew thinner, the glowing plankton dispersing. The current guided her gently back toward the reef, as if returning her to her resting place. She passed once more through the coral arches, the glow fading into the familiar shapes of the lagoon. The meadow of seagrass swayed softly, the sand shimmered with moonlight, and her kin rested peacefully in their slumber. The current released her there, its task complete. Luma drifted to the sandy floor, lowering herself until her shell rested in its cradle once more. Her body felt light, her spirit full. The starlit currents had shown her the beauty of surrender, the peace of being carried. She closed her eyes, the image of glowing rivers still drifting behind her lids. In her dreams, she floated endlessly, moving with the stars through seas that had no end. The ocean whispered softly around her, and Luma slept, safe in its embrace. The morning came quietly, as if the ocean itself wished to keep its secrets hidden a little longer. The tide rolled in and out with a slow rhythm, and the lagoon shimmered beneath the early light. Luma stirred, her heart still holding the memory of the starlit currents from the night before. She had been carried among glowing rivers, shown the beauty of surrender, and now her spirit was both calm and curious. That curiosity guided her thoughts back to the reef. She had passed through its arches many times, but there was one place she had never gone. Eldaron had spoken of it only once, in whispers softer than the tide. He called it the Cave of Echoes, a place hidden deep within the coral where time seemed to stand still. It was not forbidden, only seldom visited. Few turtles ever felt called to enter, for the cave revealed itself only when the ocean chose. That morning, Luma felt the pull. The reef stretched before her, glowing faintly in the morning sun. Fish wove between its branches, their scales glinting like scattered jewels. The coral's shapes twisted in colors both bright and shadowed, as though hiding stories in their folds. Luma moved slowly along its edges, letting her flippers carry her with patience. Then she saw it, a narrow opening, barely wide enough for her shell, glowing faintly as though lit from within. She paused, the current brushing against her, as if nudging her forward. Her heart stirred with both wonder and hesitation. With a deep, slow breath, she entered. The water grew cooler as she slipped inside, the light from the lagoon fading behind her. The walls of coral closed around her, shimmering with faint glows of blue and green. The deeper she swam, the quieter the ocean became, until all she could hear was the sound of her own breath and the slow beat of her flippers against the still water. The tunnel widened at last, opening into a hidden chamber. Luma gasped softly, bubbles rising from her mouth. Before her stretched a cavern of crystal. The walls gleamed with formations of stone that glowed softly in hues of turquoise, violet, and silver. Some hung like icicles from the ceiling, others rose like pillars from the floor, their edges smooth from centuries of water's touch. The glow filled the space, reflecting off the water until the entire chamber seemed alive with light. She drifted forward, her shell catching the colors as she passed. The water here was still, almost weightless, as though time itself had slowed. Then she heard it, a sound, soft and distant, carried through the chamber. At first it seemed like nothing more than the echo of her own movements, But soon it grew clearer, deep, resonant notes, like voices humming through stone. She stilled, listening. The echoes filled the cave, low and steady, rising and falling in a rhythm older than memory. They were not the songs of dolphins, nor the lullabies of whales, but something else, something that felt familiar. Turtles, her heart stirred as she realized. These were the songs of those who had come before, carried through the cave, captured and held within the crystal walls. Each note lingered, reflecting endlessly, as though the voices of her ancestors had been preserved in the stone. Luma closed her eyes, letting the sound wash over her. She felt the weight of generations behind her, journeys taken, challenges faced, oceans crossed. Yet the echoes did not feel heavy. They were gentle, comforting, like the touch of many shells resting lightly against her own. Slowly, she began to move with the sound. Her flippers traced arcs in the water, her body gliding with the rhythm of the echoes. She released a small stream of bubbles, her own soft sound joining the chorus. The cave caught it, folded it into the harmony, and returned it to her as if it had always been part of the song. She lingered there for a long time, drifting between the glowing crystals, her spirit quiet and full. She thought of Elderon, of the dolphin's joy, of the whale's lullaby, of the starlit currents. All of it seemed connected, woven together into this moment. The cave was not just a place of echoes, it was a reminder that no journey was truly solitary. Every voice, every step, every current was part of the same great song. When at last she turned to leave, she felt no sadness. The echoes would remain, singing forever, waiting for any who chose to listen. She carried them now within her, a melody to guide her through her own journey. The tunnel welcomed her back with its soft glow. Soon, the light of the lagoon appeared ahead, warm and golden. Some of the shells were used by the smallest crabs as homes, while others simply lay in the sand, catching moonlight like tiny mirrors. In the center of the lagoon, the water was deep and clear. Beneath its surface grew beds of seagrass, swaying like gentle green curtains with the movements of the tide. Schools of tiny silver fish darted among the blades, their bodies flashing briefly whenever the moonlight touched them. Above them, the turtles swam at their unhurried pace, their shells gliding like drifting leaves across a pond. Every evening, as twilight deepened into night, the lagoon seemed to come alive in its own quiet way. The air carried the cool fragrance of salt and blooming sea flowers. The water shimmered faintly with bioluminescent life, each movement stirring soft glows that faded slowly back into the dark. It was as though the lagoon itself carried its own stars, hidden just beneath the surface. Luma floated peacefully near the heart of the lagoon, her shell rocking gently with the rise and fall of the tide. Around her, other turtles gathered in their evening rhythm. Some floated near the surface, watching the sky. Others rested on the sandy floor, motionless except for the soft movement of their flippers. It was a community of stillness, each turtle connected by the water that held them all. Near the edge of the lagoon, a group of younger turtles played together, chasing small bubbles that rose from the reef. They turned and spun in the water, their shells glinting faintly in the moonlight. Their laughter was not a sound, but a kind of energy that rippled through the lagoon, a joy that could be felt more than heard. Luma watched them with quiet fondness, remembering when she too was young and full of restless curiosity. At the farthest point of the lagoon lay a reef that marked the boundary between safety and the open ocean. It was a wall of coral, colorful even beneath the moonlight, where sea fans waved gracefully and small creatures tucked themselves into its crevices. Beyond the reef stretched the vast, dark sea, mysterious and endless, calling softly with the voice of the horizon. But within the lagoon, everything was gentle. Everything was calm. An older turtle drifted near Luma, his shell worn smooth by years of travel. His movements were slow, steady, like the rhythm of the tide itself. He had returned from the open ocean seasons ago and now spent his days in quiet peace among the younger ones. His presence carried wisdom, though he never spoke it aloud. The lagoon held its stories in silence, and the turtles learned by watching, by moving together, by simply being. Luma swam a slow circle through the lagoon, her flippers stirring faint trails of glowing light from the plankton below. She moved past the younger turtles, who paused in their play to watch her, their eyes wide and curious. She glided past the reef, where tiny fish flickered in and out of coral arches. She moved past the sandy shallows, where the tide smoothed ripples into patterns that would change again by morning. Everything here was alive, yet everything was still. It was a place of balance, a place where the outside world seemed far away. When Luma returned to the center of the lagoon, she lifted her gaze once more to the moonlit sky. The stars had grown brighter, scattering across the heavens in endless patterns. She traced them slowly, one by one, recognizing the shapes that her ancestors had followed across distant waters. There was the shape of the great whale, curving in the north. There was the path of the archer fish, its stars aligned in a narrow row. And there, above them all, was the gentle line of the turtle constellation, its shell-shaped cluster watching over the sea. The younger turtles often whispered their wonder about the stars, asking if they were lanterns, or fires, or reflections of something even greater. The older turtles, with their calm patience, would simply smile in their way and tell them to look closely, to follow the stars when the time was right and the answers would come. For now, the stars were simply companions, silent, patient, always present. The night deepened further, and the lagoon grew quieter. The younger turtles grew tired, their play slowing as they drifted toward the shallows to rest. The older ones closed their eyes, their bodies settling into the slow rhythm of the tide. One by one, they sank into stillness, as though the lagoon itself had wrapped them in a blanket of safety. Luma, too, felt the weight of rest calling her. She floated near the surface, her eyes half closed, the moon's reflection shimmering softly on the water around her. The night air was cool, but the water was warm, and she felt the gentle balance of both as she drifted. In the distance, a single wave rose and fell against the reef, its sound low and steady. It was the only sound now, the lullaby of the sea itself. The turtles listened without listening, their hearts beating in time with the waves. And so, beneath the moon, in the soft embrace of the lagoon, the turtles rested together. The world outside was vast, but here, within their sanctuary, there was only stillness, only peace, only the gentle breath of the ocean cradling them into dreams. The night was calm in the lagoon, the stars casting their gentle glow upon the water. Most of the younger turtles had already drifted into sleep, resting along the sandy shallows, their shells tucked into the warm embrace of the tide. But one figure remained awake a little longer, moving with the deliberate slowness of age and wisdom. He was known simply as Elderon. His shell was large and weathered, carrying the faint marks of journeys long past. Its surface bore soft grooves shaped by time, like ripples of the sea frozen in stone. His eyes, dark and steady, reflected both the present moment and the memories of countless seasons before. He was the eldest of the turtles in the lagoon, and though his body was slower now, his presence carried the calm weight of the ocean itself. The younger turtles often gathered around him, not because he spoke often, but because when he did, his words seemed to linger in the water long after they were spoken. Elderon's stories were not told quickly. They were unhurried, like the movement of tides, gently unfolding in their own rhythm. This night, as the moon climbed higher and silvered the lagoon, Luma swam toward him. She found him resting near the reef, his head lifted just above the surface, gazing out toward the open ocean. The light of the moon brushed over his shell, giving it the soft sheen of polished stone. Luma swam slowly beside him, and for a while they simply floated together in silence. The water moved around them in a steady rhythm, and above them the stars blinked like distant lanterns. Elderon turned his gaze toward the horizon, his eyes calm and far away, as though he could see beyond the edge of the sea. After a long stillness, his voice rumbled softly, deep and steady, like the sound of waves meeting the shore. She slipped out through the narrow opening, the reef's colors greeting her like old friends. The ocean felt different now, though unchanged. She saw the fish, the coral, the sand, but beneath it all, she felt the echoes still humming, as if the entire sea were alive with memory. She returned to the center of the lagoon, where Elderon rested near the sand. He looked at her as though he knew, his eyes filled with both wisdom and tenderness. "You have found the cave," he said, his voice slow and deep. "Yes," Luma whispered. "I heard them, the ones who came before." Elderon nodded. "Their voices remain, so we may remember that we are never alone in the sea. Their journeys flow into ours, and ours will one day join theirs." Luma lowered herself into the sand, her body still glowing faintly with the colors of the crystals. She closed her eyes, the echoes still alive within her. As she drifted into rest, the cave's song lingered in her dreams, carrying her deeper into the ocean's endless embrace. The day began with calm skies. The lagoon sparkled beneath a soft sun, and the waves stretched outward in endless ripples. Luma swam slowly near the coral edge, her thoughts still full of the cave's echoes. The memory lingered like a gentle song, carrying her with a new sense of peace. But as the hours passed, she felt a subtle change in the current. The water grew restless, the surface shifting with unusual rhythm. Above, the sky dimmed, clouds gathering in shades of grey and silver. The once soft breeze grew stronger, carrying with it the salty scent of distant rain. Elderon raised his head from the sand, his eyes narrowing at the horizon. "The ocean is turning," he said softly. Luma watched the clouds deepen. She had never seen the sea darken this way. Her heart stirred with unease, yet also curiosity. "The storm is not an enemy," Elderon continued, sensing her worry. "It is a teacher. The ocean shows us calm and song, but also strength and change. Do not fear it, simply move with it." The first drops of rain touched the surface, tiny ripples spreading outward like whispers. The turtles in the lagoon stirred, some moving deeper beneath the water, others tucking themselves safely against the coral. Luma hesitated, then swam closer to Elderon. The storm arrived with sudden power. Waves rolled higher, pushing and pulling with a force she had never felt. The water churned, thick with energy, carrying her upward, then downward, in great sweeping motions. The sky above roared, lightning flashing like silver veins across the dark. Thunder followed, deep and resonant, as though the heavens themselves were speaking to the sea. At first, panic rose in her chest. The current grabbed at her flippers, spinning her toward the open ocean. She struggled to keep her path steady, her heart racing. But then she remembered Elderon's words. "Do not fight. Move with it." She slowed her movements, letting the water carry her. Instead of resisting the pull, she angled her flippers just enough to guide her body through the waves. The storm tossed her, yes, but it did not crush her. She began to understand the ocean was not trying to harm her. It was simply moving in its own wild rhythm. Rain pelted the surface above, its sound softened by the water like thousands of tiny drums. The flashes of lightning lit the waves from beneath, turning them into brief, glowing walls. Luma swam among them, steady and slow, letting her breath remain calm. In the distance, she saw dolphins leaping through the storm, their sleek bodies cutting cleanly through the crashing water. They whistled and clicked, their voices sharp but joyful, as if they celebrated the storm's power rather than feared it. A great shadow moved below her, the whale, steady as ever. It swam with calm strength, its immense body unshaken by the turmoil. A low song rose from its throat, a deep, grounding note that resonated through the waves. The storm raged above, but the whale's song was steady, unbroken, like a heartbeat in the chaos. Luma followed the rhythm. She let the song anchor her, guiding her breath. Each note was long, slow, reminding her that storms passed, that even the fiercest currents gave way to calm. She began to see beauty in the storm. The waves, though wild, carried her in arcs that felt almost like flight. The thunder was not frightening, but grand, a drumbeat of the sky. The lightning, though bright, revealed for a moment the hidden shapes of the sea, the shimmer of fish darting low, the glint of coral swept by foam. Hours passed this way, though Luma could not measure them. The storm came in waves of power, then softened, then rose again. She moved with it, sometimes near the surface, sometimes deep below, her body learning to trust the ocean's rhythm. At last, the thunder grew distant. The lightning dimmed. The waves, still rolling, began to ease. The rain softened into a gentle mist, tapping lightly against the water's skin. Slowly, the sky brightened, the clouds pulling apart to reveal faint threads of sunlight. The lagoon returned to stillness. The other turtles emerged from their shelter, their shells glistening with rain. The dolphins leapt one final time before vanishing into the horizon. The whale, too, drifted back into deeper waters, its song fading into memory. Luma floated near Elderon, who regarded her with knowing eyes. "You have learned," he said. Luma nodded, her breath steady, her body calm, despite the storm she had just endured. "I thought it would crush me, but when I stopped fighting, it carried me instead." Eldaron's eyes softened. "The ocean is balance. Storms will come, but they do not last. You must remember this, Luma, not only in the sea, but in all things. Fear rises, troubles arrive, yet if you breathe and move with them, they pass, leaving you stronger." She lowered herself beside him, resting on the sand. Her body was tired, but her heart was full. The storm had not broken her, it had shown her something she would never forget. Above, the last drops of rain fell, sparkling in the sunlight. The lagoon glowed as though washed clean. Every shell, every grain of sand, brighter than before. Luma closed her eyes. She felt the echo of thunder still in her chest, not as fear, but as strength. The ocean had given her yet another gift, and so, lulled by the soft rhythm of the returning tide, she drifted once more into rest. The memory of the storm, a quiet lullaby within her dreams. The lagoon was quiet in the days after the storm. The waters were calm, the sands smooth once again, as though the sea itself had paused to take a long, cleansing breath. Luma drifted slowly, her mind still carrying the memory of the thunder and the whale's steady song. She had learned much about surrender, about balance, but she sensed the ocean still had more to share. On the evening of the third day, Eldaron raised his head and spoke to the younger turtles who gathered near him. His voice was slow and deep, carrying the weight of something important. "It is time," he said. "The storm has passed. The sea has given us its lesson. Now we must give our gratitude. Tonight we will swim in the Festival of Lights." The younger turtles stirred with excitement. Even those who had heard of it before whispered among themselves, their voices hushed with wonder. Luma tilted her head. "The Festival of Lights?" she asked. Eldaron smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling like waves meeting the shore. "It is an old tradition, older than even I can remember. On the first night after a great storm, when the sea is calm again, the ocean gifts us with light. We gathered to honor that gift, to swim together beneath the glow of the sea." As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the turtles began to prepare. They moved slowly toward the open waters beyond the lagoon, where the reef stretched wide and deep. The sky grew softer, painted in shades of lavender and gold, then darkened into the deep indigo of night. The moment the last light of the sun sank beneath the waves, the ocean transformed. Tiny sparks of blue and green shimmered in the water, swirling like stardust. With each movement of a flipper, trails of glowing light followed, curling in graceful patterns. Luma gasped, her eyes wide. She had seen flickers of this glow before, in shallow waters, but never like this. The entire sea seemed alive with luminescence, as though the stars had descended to dance within the waves. The turtles swam together, their shells glowing faintly as the light clung to them. Each stroke created rivers of color, painting the water with ribbons of blue fire. The dolphins soon joined, their leaps sending cascades of glowing droplets into the air. Even the smallest fish darted through, their scales flashing like sparks. Luma swam among them, her heart swelling with awe. Each movement she made left a trail that shimmered, fading slowly into the darkness. She twirled gently, sending spirals of light outward. The other turtles mirrored her, their motions weaving patterns that overlapped and blended like a great tapestry painted upon the sea. Eldaron moved with quiet grace, his large shell glowing like a lantern in the deep. He lifted his head toward the sky, and Luma followed his gaze. Above, the heavens were filled with stars. Below, the ocean mirrored them in glowing trails. For a moment, it was impossible to tell where the sky ended and the sea began. It was as if the turtles swam through the very fabric of the universe. The festival was not loud nor rushed. It was slow, deliberate, like a meditation in motion. Some turtles swam side by side, their lights merging into one bright ribbon. Others moved alone, tracing quiet circles, their paths crossing gently with others like threads in a great weaving. And through it all, there was a sense of unity. Not a word was spoken, yet each turtle seemed to feel the same quiet gratitude the storm had passed. The sea was calm again, and they were here together, alive and safe. Luma swam deeper, into darker waters, where the glow grew brighter against the black. She drifted slowly onto her back, her flippers open, letting the currents carry her. Above her, the stars shimmered. Below her, the glowing trails swirled. For the first time, she felt truly weightless, suspended between sea and sky. Memories of the storm returned not as fear, but as contrast. The roar of thunder, the crashing waves, the surge of lightning. Now, all was quiet. The balance was clear. The sea gave challenge, and it gave beauty. Both were part of the same whole. A pod of dolphins swam past, leaping high before diving into the glow. Their laughter echoed in sharp, joyful notes, breaking the silence, yet adding to it in their own way. A whale's distant song rose once more, deep and grounding, as if offering a blessing to the festival. The turtles began to circle slowly, gathering in the center of the glowing sea. Together, they moved in wide arcs, their trails merging into a great spiral of light. Luma swam within it, her body flowing with the rhythm, her spirit calm. Eldaron spoke then, his voice barely more than a whisper carried on the water. The ocean teaches us balance. The storm shakes us, but the calm restores us. The sea gives both, and we give our gratitude in return. Tonight, we swim not for ourselves, but for the ocean that carries us all. The turtles drifted in silence for a long while after his words, their lights still glowing softly around them. Slowly, one by one, they began to move outward again, their trails stretching into the darkness like stars returning to the night sky. Luma lingered, her heart full. She had never felt so connected not only to her kin, but to the sea itself. She traced one final slow arc with her flipper, watching the glow drift and fade. Then she turned back toward the lagoon, following the others home. By the time she reached the shore, the light had begun to dim. The ocean settled into its usual calm, the glow fading until only the moon remained above, casting silver light across the water. Luma rested on the sand beside Eldaron, her body tired, but her spirit alive. She closed her eyes, carrying the memory of the glowing sea within her. Even as the night deepened into silence, she knew the light remained, not only in the water, but in her own heart. And so, beneath the moonlit sky, she drifted into dreams, the trails of light guiding her gently into sleep. The morning after the Festival of Lights dawned with unusual stillness. The lagoon shimmered like glass, unbroken by wave or ripple. The air was cool and soft, carrying the faintest scent of salt and seagrass. Luma awoke near the shore, her shell warmed by the first light of the rising sun. For a while, she remained still, letting the rhythm of her breath match the rhythm of the tide. Her dreams had been filled with trails of glowing light, spirals of turtles, and the deep hum of voices carried through time. Even as she opened her eyes, the dreams lingered, blending with the calmness of the morning. She stretched her flippers slowly, then drifted into the lagoon. The water was warm and welcoming, wrapping around her like a gentle embrace. The other turtles stirred nearby, some still resting, others lazily tracing circles near the reef. Eldarin, as always, remained calm at the center, his eyes half closed in thought. When Luma swam near, he looked at her with a steady gaze. "You have traveled far," he said softly, "not in distance, but in spirit. You have seen the currents, the echoes, the storm, and the light. What do you feel now, little one?" Luma paused, letting her thoughts settle. "I feel full," she said at last, "full of the sea, of its calm and its power. But also I feel something more, as if the ocean is calling me farther, beyond the reef." Eldarin's eyes crinkled with quiet understanding. "It is the call of the deep. Every turtle hears it when the time comes. The lagoon is where we begin, where we learn. But the ocean is wide, and its lessons are endless. One day you will swim far, guided by that call. You need not hurry. When you are ready, the sea will open itself to you." The thought stirred Luma's heart. She looked out beyond the reef, where the horizon stretched endlessly, the surface gleaming beneath the morning light. She wondered what currents lay out there, what mysteries, what songs. The idea filled her with both excitement and calm, as if her journey had only just begun. That evening, as the sun set in shades of gold and crimson, the turtles gathered one final time in the lagoon. They floated together in a quiet circle, their shells brushing gently, their movements slow and steady. No words were spoken, for none were needed. The bond between them was felt in every breath, every ripple of the water. The dolphins returned for a brief moment, leaping playfully before vanishing into the horizon. A whale's distant song drifted through the depths, low and soothing, like a farewell blessing. Above them, the stars appeared once more, scattered across the velvet sky, their reflection shimmering upon the calm sea. Luma gazed upward, her heart swelling with gratitude. She thought of the old cave and its echoes, the storm and its power, the festival and its light. All of it was part of her now, woven together into the fabric of her spirit. She felt no fear of what lay beyond the reef, only wonder, only peace. As the night deepened, the turtles slowly drifted apart, each settling into rest. Eldarin lowered himself into the sand, his eyes closing with the ease of one who has seen many tides. Luma lingered a moment longer, floating near the edge of the reef. She let her flippers sway gently, her body rising and falling with the soft breath of the sea. The horizon stretched before her, dark and endless, yet somehow welcoming. She did not need to leave now, not yet. The call of the deep would wait. For tonight, she belonged here, in the calm embrace of the lagoon, beneath the watch of the stars. She closed her eyes, the water rocking her in its gentle cradle. The sounds of the sea surrounded her, the distant hum of fish moving through the reef, the whisper of currents slipping between coral, the soft sigh of waves against the shore. Each sound was a lullaby, guiding her deeper into rest. Her breath slowed, her body grew heavy with comfort, and at last she drifted into dreams, carried by the ocean's endless song. Somewhere beyond the reef, the deep awaited. But for now, all was calm, all was light, all was peace. And so, our story comes to its close. The gentle turtles rest once more in their lagoon, the sea calm and endless, the stars watching from above. Their journey is not over, but for tonight, they drift peacefully, carried by the rhythm of the ocean's song. And now, it is time for you to rest as well. Feel the softness of your breath, the quietness of your body, and the calmness of your mind. Whatever storms you have faced today have passed, and now you are safe, held gently in the stillness of this moment. If you are still awake, allow yourself to sink deeper into comfort, knowing that sleep will come in its own time. And if you are already asleep, may your dreams be filled with light, calm waters, and the soft embrace of peace. Thank you for joining me tonight. Until we meet again, may you rest well, dream deeply, and wake renewed. Good night.